Welcome to the 4th episode of Campaign D-Scussions. Today I am joined by fellow board member Tyler Nersinger, and today we're going to talk about a recent experience of his. So, I heard you had gallbladder surgery, so tell us what led up to that and how the recovery has been.
Okay, so I started noticing something in, I want to say, sometime in April, maybe late March, early April. I was feeling ill, but that was because I had a cold or a fever or some kind of small flu. But I was noticing these massive pains that would come from my chest area. I mostly in the upper chest on the right side of my body.
Ooh, ouch.
But maybe a little bit on the left. However, I couldn't tell exactly where it was, so I wasn't exactly sure what was going on. Now, I've had GERD, and I take medication for GERD, and I've been doing that for 6 years. But this was something that was new. This was something that had never happened before. I had, in the past, I would occasionally, because of the GERD and the acid reflux, I would tend to throw up certain things into my mouth. Yes, that is disgusting, but it wasn't something like that. It was like massive pain, and I knew it had something to do with my digestive system, but I couldn't figure out where it was. And so I would have massive pain. I would throw up. Initially I just, nobody knew what was going on. So my parents would give me, suggestions like take some medication and maybe have a piece of bread or something.
Yeah. Take an Advil or Tylenol.
Yep.
Over-the-counter
Correct.
stuff.
Ibuprofen, Tums, stuff like that. I probably should have noticed it, and I probably should have figured it out a lot earlier, but when I was throwing up, I had seen there were some greenish yellow things, which just so happens to be bile. But I didn't realize that it was my gallbladder until a bit later. I thought maybe it was something with my pancreas, maybe appendicitis. I just knew that something was wrong with my digestive system. But anyway, so then one night in the evening, we were at a restaurant and I couldn't really eat. I started by taking some medication that was seemingly helping, but then I had another attack. And I felt significant pain that I wasn't even able to sit up.
Ooh.
I was basically lying down. That's when my parents realized that, yeah, something is wrong with me. And the interesting thing about it was, we went to see the doctor. We'd gone to see the doctor earlier that day, and the doctor assumed that maybe it had something to do with the flu or stomach virus or whatever that I had, and I was constantly coughing. So we just assumed that was what it was.
Some viral thing or something.
Correct, yes. And then right after I went to the doctor. I had this breakfast that I probably shouldn't have had. It usually would take about 8 hours or so for it to start being digested, and that's usually when the pain would come.
Yeah.
And I finally kind of figured out that it was in my upper right chest area. And my parents figured that out, and they realized something might be wrong with my gallbladder. So we end up going to urgent care, and of course they send me to the emergency room anyway. And I had an ultrasound done, and they noticed that my gallbladder had been full of sludge, which is and it was having trouble, I believe, producing bile and storing bile, and it was basically it was backing up in there. They saw some polyps, although it wasn't really anything significant, and there was a little bit of kind of pre-gallstone stuff going on at that time. They ended up giving me an antibiotic to try and reduce. It was also infected, and it was inflamed. It was disgusting. So they put me on an antibiotic to kind of help heal things down. And then at the beginning of May, they went in and they removed the gallbladder. And they told me that I had to, at least for a period of time, be on a restricted diet. Although I started to have a little bit more stuff after some time. But I'll tell you, I was terrified. I was like, what's going to happen to me? In fact, I got to the point where I wasn't even really eating anything at all.
Ooh, yeah, that's...
And my parents were worried because I wasn't eating anything. All I was doing was basically drinking water. And when they went in to do the gallbladder removal, typically it takes about an hour or so to do it. They put you under anesthesia so you don't feel it.
Yeah, it isn't the Middle Ages anymore. They
No.
don't just...
Yes, that is correct. They do not do that. But I ended up being in there for like 2.5 hours or something, because when they opened me up and they looked at the gallbladder, they had noticed that it was inflamed, it was all red, maybe swollen a little bit.
Pretty gnarly looking.
Yes, very disgusting. And it was not, I'm sure it was a lot more difficult for them to pull it out than with maybe something that wasn't quite, if it was slightly smaller. So I've had it out for basically a month, or almost 2 months, and I've been doing pretty well with the recovery. I don't feel any more pain.
That's good.
Unfortunately, I still have the GERD problems. Not as bad as I had before. I think overall the recovery's been pretty well. However, I do know that I have been making some questionable choices about my diet recently. And I think that was something you kind of were going to mention in, like, then you were gonna say something about that, correct?
Yeah, the next avenue I'm gonna kind of lead us down is do you think being on the spectrum played any role in how you experienced symptoms or how you are experiencing recovery or the choices you've made during recovery?
Potentially. I will say that I wasn't the greatest when it came to, and I still am not the greatest when it comes to diet.
I mean, who is?
Yeah. But because of, I don't know if it's because of the form of autism that I have or if it's maybe the ADHD, I had a pretty high metabolism for a lot of my early days. So, food would go in and it would, it wouldn't really, the sugars and fats and stuff and whatever else didn't really get absorbed.
That's actually the same exact experience I would have. My pediatrician would tell me that I had an iron immune system.
Yep.
I don't know if that's related to my autism at all, but two people
Yep.
on the spectrum have the same experience.
Correct. But then eventually it caught up to me, probably because I'm not the greatest with exercise. I'm not the most fit. I'm kind of lazy. And so all of a sudden, that's when a lot of the problems started to come around. I think that's when the GERD really started to head in. I started gaining weight, not to a significant amount, but certainly to a significant amount to prior, because I was relatively about average weight, maybe a little underweight even, but then I started gaining weight significantly. And I think part of that is because when you're on the spectrum, I can even say this for one of our other founders. I won't name the founder that I'm talking about because I don't want to get a black eye, potentially. But we don't know when we've eaten too much.
Yeah.
So we'll overeat, and a lot of times we don't even recognize. And I think part of that also was because my metabolism was so high back then. I was able to eat a lot of stuff. Yes, they tell you to eat healthy stuff, and I was even doing it back then. I think this also may not necessarily be the autism. It could also just be the ADHD and impulsivity. But I tended to levitate towards foods that had it had a lot of fat in them.
Yeah.
Or sugar. So stuff like milk, which isn't exactly the worst thing to have, but I drank a lot of milk, and milk contains a lot of fat. I had a lot of soda. I would eat a lot of candy. I would eat a lot of bad junk food. And I was able to basically get through it until really when I stopped going to school. I think that's when the metabolism started to slow down because I wasn't walking every day because I wasn't at school and I was basically at home and I wasn't really getting any exercise.
I think that for many individuals on the spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
like myself, a lot of us are so wrapped up in all our social needs and the
Yes,
social aspects of life that
that is true.
physical health sometimes just kind of goes out the window, especially when you're young, especially, when
Yep.
you're supposedly in the prime of your life.
That, yes. And I also think that might also be part of that whole thing, is because you're not really thinking so much about the health physically, you're more thinking about the health mentally.
Yes.
So you're not thinking about, staying in shape, eating healthy, all that kind of stuff. And then it gets to, and then if you're not careful, you become significantly obese, and it can happen in an instant.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is maybe also because of the, social difficulties, you don't have people out there, like friends, that might tell you, look, I think you got to stop eating. I think you're eating too much. Or do you really think it's a good idea to eat that or drink that? You probably should get this instead.
I mean, you have your parents.
That is true, yes. Of course, there are the parents. But, like, if I'm out and about by myself.
Yeah.
Or, when I was in Scouts, I would be gone for usually at least 1 week in the summer. And they had a trading post at the camp, which had tons of candy and soda and beverages and stuff that's really not good for you.
And they would have it for, like, dirt cheap.
They would have it for it was very inexpensive. So I think, and of course, unless your parents are maybe scout leaders, or they decide, or maybe they like going camping or whatever. I know in the case of my parents, especially my father, camping is not a personal thing that they like to do. But you're basically there with the rest of your troop, and yes, you have the leaders in your troop that can certainly help and maybe make suggestions, but you're basically by yourself most of the time with people around the same age as you. So nobody necessarily is going to tell you what is right and what is wrong. I will say, and I think this is partially because, like, as I said, when I was worried about my gallbladder, because it was, there was a lot of stuff going on, I was terrified. I was really not eating anything at all. And I tried to, I was keeping an eye on my diet and trying to eat more healthy. And I will say that I am better, but I still have my faults. I do drink soda to a degree. There was a period of time where I was drinking a gallon of chocolate milk almost in one day, which is not good for you.
Have you ever heard of the gallon milk challenge?
I think I have.
That was popular maybe like a decade ago. People would try to drink like an entire gallon of milk in like one sitting, and they would almost always puke.
Yeah. Or there's also those like especially in like the South, they'll have those like giant steaks that you can, if you eat it within a certain amount of time, you don't have to pay for it, kind of thing. Like,
yeah.
And usually after they're done, they puke.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. Being on your own. I mean, I do live with my parents, but they're working quite a bit, so when I'm home alone, I really am not, I don't really have any, I'm by myself and, I don't realize I'm making bad choices.
Yeah. So, what advice would you give to other autistic folks who might not be 100% tuned in to their physical health and are a little bit more tuned in to like their mental health for good reason?
Okay. Well, definitely, and certainly I know that people are going to be like, it's pretty obvious what you're going to say, but what I suggest doing, and I will say I don't do it yet, although I probably will start doing it, have like some kind of log of the different foods you're eating. And, maybe have somebody look at it, whether it's like a parent or a friend or a dietitian or a doctor or whatever, and have them review the log and see what they think. Because they might also say, you're having way too much soda. You shouldn't be having that much soda. Obviously, another important thing is to exercise, stay in shape.
Or potentially like read the labels to everything you eat. Like
Yep.
There's tons of like food logging apps you can
That's
log
right.
your food onto, and it'll tell you like, hey, I think you're having too much sodium, or you're having too much sugar or fats.
Yep.
And yeah, you can just rely on technology.
Correct. That is true. Technology. Also, make sure you look at the nutritional facts.
Yeah.
And, if you're a person with autism and you are you are dependable. You need somebody to help you the way through. Like an assistant or an aide or your parents or whatever. If I'm out there, for those people, the assistants, the aides, the parents, etc. If you're just getting stuff, and look, with autism and impulsivity, people are like, I gotta have that. I gotta have that. That's. It's not even just with people with autism, but it's more common with people with autism that they have impulsivity.
Hyperfixations.
And hyperfixations, yes.
Also, mental health and physical health are kind of one in one.
That is true, yes.
Also, this is kind of an experience with me. I can't speak for everyone on the spectrum, but like, the junk, junk food usually has, bright and colorful labels that just really...
Yes, that is true.
That just really resonate with me.
Exactly, that is a point.
It's all psychological.
Yep, they intentionally will have these bright colors. Like you go to a supermarket, go to a grocery store, and you're in the cereal aisle. And typically, the more sugary cereals like Frosted Flakes and Corn Pops
Lucky Charms.
and Lucky Charms, they'll be in these bright colors, and they'll have, potentially cartoon characters on them. All this marketing towards children.
And then, like, the healthy stuff, the bland, healthy stuff has just, like, the most boring and, like, sterile-looking box ever.
Correct. And, obviously there are the store brand versions of different cereals and stuff. But even like if you look even at this, even the store brand stuff, the more sugary stuff
Yeah.
typically is in more bright colors and more pops out. Whereas if you look at something like, I don't know, bran flakes or some kind of...
What's like the shredded wheat that isn't like, that doesn't have like the frosting on it?
Yep, it's usually tends to be in a very boring beige color or some boring form of orange or brown, something that doesn't stick out to you.
Yeah.
And yes, obviously, you could theoretically get the more basic stuff and put sugar on it or milk or whatever, and you're basically going potentially into almost as if you basically just bought the actual product. Like, you buy corn, you get cornflakes, basic cornflakes, and then you cover them with tons and tons of sugar. You might as well have just gotten Frosted Flakes. Although, I do believe they tend to add a lot more sugar. Whereas, I think if you're getting it by yourself and you're making it yourself, there's probably a good chance that you're not going to put nearly as much sugar. But, that's the other thing. And that's, I think, also part of that whole hyperfixation and impulsivity. You're going to tend to gravitate towards those, brighter colors and, or like they'll have like really, like the font is humongous, or it's like this very crazy font that just pops out.
Over just the drab, boring, beige, like, healthy cereal.
Correct.
I really like, and I'm really not sure how healthy this is for you, but protein cereal. There's the Ghost cereal that I really like.
Yeah, I don't know, and that's the other thing. These companies, they'll try to promote that they're, they'll say, oh, this is healthy, plenty of protein, but then you actually look at the nutritional facts and you see, oh my god, there's a whole bunch of sugar in there.
Yeah. And then I also really like Magic Spoon. Not sponsored, by the way, but that's again, not sure how healthy these options are, but
exactly. But again, I think the other big thing that I think is more of an important thing, more than even watching your diet, which is still very important, is and a lot more difficult for people on the spectrum to have, is the exercise factor.
Yeah.
Because, if you are not thinking about it because potentially you're thinking about something else, you end up not wanting to exercise. So you basically just or you don't necessarily care, or I don't know exactly how to say it, but there's a good chance that you're not going to exercise.
Yeah.
Which...
I have a gym membership.
Yep, so do I.
Yeah.
And I should be... I need to use it more, but,
What gym do you have a membership for?
Planet Fitness.
Oh, I've got... I go to a World.
Okay. Neither of these were sponsored by...
Yeah. We are paying for them, though.
Yes, we are paying, but this is not sponsored.
Yeah, they're not paying us.
Correct. The big thing to do is... Basically, I would put it down to, I guess, maybe 3 or 4 pointers.
Yes.
Basically. And yes, this is certainly stuff that you probably will hear from a doctor or a dietitian or whatever.
Or some guy on the internet.
Correct, yes. But try to always eat in moderation.
Yes.
And, try to not overeat, or if you can't tell that you've eaten too much, try to figure out, again, this also, the food log is not a bad thing for if you're eating, you're not realizing you're eating too much. Like, let's say you write down, I had 2 bowls of
cornflakes.
Sure. Well, I was going to say Frosted Flakes with milk. They might, and then it's like, that's, and I finished both bowls. And you don't, that might be like, that's a problem there, because that is a lot of sugar and fat that you're taking in there. But try to figure out how hungry you really are and eat more consistently. Eat in moderation.
Yes.
Eat in a consistent manner. Don't, I know that, I don't know why it is, but I don't tend to feel hungry. I don't know what it is with me.
Yeah.
But I don't really,
I kind of have the same experience. I really don't know if it is an autism thing or...
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure you're probably, I hear the growling, but I'm not sure if that's because it's an empty stomach or if it's because it's digesting the food.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I just thought about. I think that's another, and then that might be another reason why people overeat, because their stomachs are so empty because they haven't been eating consistently, that when it's time to eat, like let's say it's dinner time and they haven't had anything since maybe breakfast,
yeah,
then they're going to want, a significant amount of food, or they're going to eat it.
Or their stomachs have shrank and they barely even eat anything.
Correct. And, and then they eat too much, and it ends up being a problem afterwards.
Yeah.
Like throwing up.
Yeah.
And of course the other big thing is staying in shape. Make sure that you're moving your body, because I think the other thing that doesn't help is when you're just kind of sitting around or lying around, not really doing anything. I think that also can contribute to the empty stomach feeling.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that doing some exercise it might grow the stomach might feel a little bit better. I don't exactly know, but again, it's a lot about watching the diet and staying in shape. And for anybody that's on the spectrum, that's not easy to do.
Yeah, easier said than done.
Correct. And, you would think I might have a definitive answer for it, but I honestly do not. You're not thinking about, again, you've, as you said, a lot of times you're thinking about something else, like mental health typically,
yeah,
as opposed to the physical health. So you tend to forget about oh, I need to exercise, or I should be not eating this kind of food. But again, it's hard for us. It really is. And there's there's also a good chance that if you're not paying attention to your physical health, then something bad could happen. Really bad.
Yeah.
Like, I'm guessing, although maybe it had nothing necessarily to do with my diet, although I'm sure the diet did not help, I had to have my gallbladder removed.
Yeah.
There's a good chance, I don't know what the numbers are, but it tends to be that there's a lot more people that that are on the spectrum that eventually get some kind of diabetes. And there's a lot of people that are on the spectrum that might be overweight as well.
Yeah. Not sure if there's any correlation there, but not sure what if there's any studies about that, or if it's just kind of a coincidence or a correlation. But
drink more water. Water is very,
water is life.
No, it's not. But water I think some people don't like water because it might be a little bit bland.
Yeah.
Although, honestly, I personally I think water's fine. I just don't drink it as much as I should be. Because water it shouldn't have any sugar in it or fat.
Or any added. It's literally just H2O.
Correct. And maybe some other,
chemicals.
Correct. Or
bottling companies put in.
Correct. Or maybe proteins or, minerals, vitamins, minerals. I don't know what else. I really don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
Myself. Basically, I'm glad that I noticed that I was having the pain from the gallbladder, because there have been a lot of people that this isn't just people on the spectrum. This is just people in general. They won't recognize that their gallbladders are failing. And typically, my pain threshold is pretty high. I don't tend to feel pain that much. But that pain from the gallbladder, the attacks, it was significant pain.
Yeah.
So all I can say is remember to think about your physical health as much as you can.
Yes.
Obviously, you're not going to always think about it, especially if, you have certain issues that are really, making you think more about your mental health, or you're just thinking about other things in general.
And as stated earlier, physical and mental health are one in one.
Correct. And again, it's all about the physical health aspect in life. And that's something that people with autism really tend to forget about.
Yeah.
And I also think that, having the right kind of doctors and stuff like that also will help significantly, because, as I said, the doctor that I saw when I was having those attacks, she said that it had something to do with the flu that I had, whatever, or virus or whatever it was. Yeah. And it had nothing to do with my gallbladder. In fact, well, I don't want to get in trouble, but she didn't even check my body to see if there was any pain. Where was the pain coming from? I am trying to find a new doctor. And I think the other problem is, everything, unfortunately, and I'm not trying to really be anti-health system here, but everything is very rushed now in the medical field, because I don't know if it's because the higher ups, the health companies, the all the people that they're more worried about profits than they are about I'm sure that's probably part of it.
Yeah.
They're more interested in profits than actually physical health or mental health. But I'm not going to go any further because it could just lead into a huge political argument, and I don't want to offend anybody that may have different opinions on things. So I think we better wrap it up here.
Okay, so that's going to wrap up our 4th episode of Campaign D-Scussions. And if you enjoyed that, be sure to follow us on all our different social media platforms. Subscribe, follow, and of course, thank you for coming on. I look forward to possibly having you on again.
Yes. And I will say this, the next time I'm on here, I think I'll have more of a better, now that I have a better understanding of how this works.
Yeah.
I won't necessarily be rambling as much or repeating the same thing over and over again.
We're very much still in the beginning stages of figuring what works, what doesn't. This is still very much the beginning stages of this podcast.
Yep.
So got to start from somewhere.
Yes. Well, thank you for letting me be on here. I will definitely try to be on again.
Yeah, of course.
I don't think I'm going to necessarily get into such graphic a topic, but certainly because it was so recent and it was a major moment in my life, I kind of wanted to get bring it up now.
It's important to you.
Yes,
too,
it is. It is very important.
Yeah. All right. So thanks for listening.